Welcome to the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And, this is the final Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. If you weren't aware, I am moving over to Steelers.com. That will start next week. So I'll be leaving here, DK Pittsburgh Sports here. A lot of good memories, a lot of good stuff that I've done over the years, and hopefully you've enjoyed. It's time to move on. And, it's also time for the Steelers to kick off the regular season, and they'll do so against the Cincinnati Bengals. And, if you look at this Bengals team on paper, it's really a pretty solid football team. They have a solid, obviously, skill position players, led by Joe Burrow and those wide receivers and everything. Obviously they went to the Super Bowl last year. They were the AFC representatives in the Super Bowl. I don't know that they're that team though. I mean, if you start looking at this really, after week 14 last year, the Bengals were 7-6 coming off of consecutive losses to the Chargers and the 49ers. And then they rattled off wins over the Broncos, the Ravens. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and that allowed them then to take that final week off of the season against the Browns. And then, got into the playoffs and beat the Raiders, Titans, Chiefs, and lost to the Rams in succession. If you look at what they did in those 3 playoff wins, they forced 7 turnovers in beating the Raiders, the Titans, and the Chiefs. They only turned the ball over twice themselves. In fact, if you look at that stretch from after they lost to the San Francisco 49ers, then turned the ball over again the rest of the regular season, and then only did it twice in the playoffs. I don't know if that's sustainable. I also look at the situation with their offensive line. And I know they spent a bunch of money on their offensive line this year, and it should be upgraded. There's no doubt. I think when you look at that line, it's certainly better than it was a year ago. Jonah Williams is back at left tackle, and he's okay. Believe it or not, he actually gave up more sacks than Dan Moore last year, 10-7. They'll have rookie Cordell Volson starting at left guard. Ted Karras was signed to play center. Alex Kappa brought in at right guard, and Lael Collins at right tackle. On paper, that's much better than what they had a year ago. Here's the thing. They didn't play that offensive line the entire preseason. 4 new starters on the offensive line, and they didn't see a snap together in the preseason. You think that'll matter? It certainly did with the Rams Thursday night. Their line looked a mess because they hadn't played together in the preseason. And they were facing far better athletes than them on the defensive side of things. That's why offensive line play is there's so much communication involved, because the guys on the defensive side of the ball are way better athletes than most of the offensive linemen. That's just the reality of the situation. Now, offensive linemen get by, and they'll tell you this because they're smarter, more technically sound, all those things. But if you haven't played together in a game, you can communicate and practice and do all those kind of things. That's great. But can you do it in a stadium with 70,000 screaming fans? That's a different thing altogether. And the Steelers are going to test that for sure. They're going to run different stunts and fires and blitzes against this offensive line to test it out. Cordell Volson's going to have his hands full with Cam Hayward. He might think he's prepared for the power and strength of Cam Hayward, but you don't know until you have to do it. And be honest, he wasn't the most stout of players in this year's draft to begin with. Remember, he's an offensive tackle, a college offensive tackle that's getting moved to guard, and he was a 4th round offensive tackle. He was long and lean. I don't know that that's going to hold up real well against Cam Hayward. So they're probably going to have to give him help. Does that mean Karras then kicks over at center to help Volson? Well, if that's the case, then Alex Kappa had better win on the other side against whoever the Steelers have in there. And Kappa's okay. He's not a great guard. He's average. Is he going to consistently win against Larry Ogunjobi or Tyson Alualu? I don't know that. And oh, by the way, if you do that, then you're leaving the aforementioned Jonah Williams on his own against Alex Highsmith. I kind of like that matchup. Again, Williams gave up 10 sacks last year. La'el Collins is a nice right tackle. Is he better than TJ Watt? Nobody else seems to be. They're going to leave him on an island with TJ Watt? That doesn't seem like a good plan. So I think the Steelers can wreak some havoc with that defensive front against Cincinnati's offensive line, even a revamped offensive line. Start to cause some communication problems. Start sending some of those linebackers up the middle to blitz. If Kappa's starting to help too much on Cam Hayward and all of a sudden you've got Miles Jack or Devin Bush running past him to the quarterback, it causes problems. And I think the Bengals are going to struggle with that. Do I think the Bengals are a better team than the Steelers? Absolutely. I think on paper, they're a better team than the Steelers. They proved it twice last year, not even on paper. They blew them. They beat them handily last year, both times, 24-10 and 41-10. But I don't know that they're that much better right now because they didn't play any of their guys in the preseason. They're using this first couple of games this year as extra preseason games. I just don't know if that's a good idea. That's why I'm taking the Steelers 24-10 in this game. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm crazy about that. Wouldn't surprise me if the Bengals win this game. Certainly, they're favored by 6.5. But I think the Steelers are going to keep it closer than that. I think they'll win it outright. But I'd certainly take the Steelers to cover that 6.5 points. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of the fond memories I'm going to have from DK Pittsburgh Sports here. If you'll grant me that little indulgence. We'll do that when we come back. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley here with the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. This is the Dale Lolley Show, the final Dale Lolley Show on the podcast network. I've been the beat writer here for DK almost 5 years. It would have been 5 years in October, and before that, I was with the Observer Reporter in Washington for 24 years. So this is my 30th season covering the Steelers on a regular basis. I did cover a couple of games in 92 as well, but I wasn't a beat writer or anything like that. I just kind of talked my sports editor at the time into sending me a couple of games to do some stories. I came down and did a story on Ted Marchibroda, and some things like that. But it's been a good ride here. Met a lot of good people, made some memories. For example, having the Hall of Fame vote in 2019 is something that's a career highlight type thing. If I never do it again, and who knows, maybe I will, I don't know. But that first time doing it, being in that room, there's 50 people in there in the country, in the world, deciding who gets to go into the Hall of Fame and who doesn't. And I had to present 2 of the 15 who were finalists that year. I can't tell you how seriously I took that task. And I can remember being in that room and I had to present Alan Faneca first. And I got through that whole thing and did the question and the answer and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, I think I did a pretty good job with that one. And then I had to present Troy Polamalu. I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. This is a no-brainer, right? And I can remember one of the writers asked me, well, aren't we putting too many first-time guys in the Hall of Fame right now. What makes him a first-time guy? Why should he be a first-time guy? What makes him that special? And I just remember thinking, uh-oh, because I knew that guy, his voice carried a lot of weight in that room. And I'm like, if he's not on board with this, I'm in trouble. And so I had to start, I did some good dancing there that day. And we called a break before we did went to the vote. And I went around and made sure I had enough votes lined up. Like, hey, guys, I told a couple of these guys, I'm like, hey, Troy's got to get in, right? Because if he doesn't get in, I don't get to go back to Pittsburgh. Because everybody knows I've got the vote this year. And if that doesn't happen, they're going to be waiting for me at the airport with pitchforks. So I got to make sure this happens. I was pretty sure Faneca had a good shot, and he did. And I was disappointed when he didn't get in. Thankfully, he got in the next year. But just a great a great memory there from that Super Bowl in Miami. There were a lot of trips that we took over the years where just crazy things happened. There was a flight back from Jacksonville that got delayed on takeoff. They were already late getting there, and we got delayed on takeoff. Had to go back to the airport and pick something up. So by the time we got to Atlanta for our connection flight, it was a half an hour before our flight was supposed to leave. Everybody on that plane was a Steeler fan. And then there was us and a couple other media members. And we're all sprinting through the Atlanta airport trying to get to that gate. And we get there and the plane is sitting there, but the door's closed and they won't open it. And there's 100 of us waiting to get we're supposed to be on that flight. Well, we can't do anything about it. Door's closed. Like, are you kidding me? You guys are the reason. Your airline is the reason why we missed the flight. Can't do anything about it. So people were going, and then everybody had to go rebook. We ended up getting back. I think we left our hotel in Jacksonville at 7:30 that morning, and we got back to Pittsburgh. I think I walked in the door of my house at 1 o'clock in the morning. Just a long, long day on a Monday, and then you got to get right back up and go cover the Tomlin press conference the next day. It's just, the travel part of covering the team is grueling, and I can't imagine. I've only ever covered the NFL. I don't know, for example, how Alex Stumpf does it with the Pirates on a regular basis. Now, you do have your trips are for longer periods of time. Oftentimes, when we fly in for an NFL game, you're in that town for less than 24 hours. You get in the day before the game, you fly out either that night or the next morning, right away the next morning. So it's just a little over 24 hours, and most of that day on Sunday is spent obviously covering the game. So it's a full grueling day, and those game days are often 16 hours. But lots of fun along the way. Met a lot of great people, a lot of great readers on the site. Met a bunch of them as well at different things, meetups, and the different cities. Of course, we had the anniversary events and things like that where I got to meet a lot of you as well. And I appreciate all that feedback that you all gave me over the years, in the way that you embraced me and welcomed me in. Some of you may not have heard of me before that, even though I've been covering the team for so long. Hopefully I held up the standard, for people who have followed me for a longer period of time. I'll still be around. I'll still be on Steelers.com. I'll still be doing the drive every day with Matt Williamson. And you can still read Matt's stuff here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'm glad I was able to make that happen before I stepped out of here. I'd been pushing for Matt for quite a while, as DK will surely tell you. I'd always wanted to bring Matt on as an analyst, and we were finally able to do that, and it worked out really well. His stuff has been very well received, and you'll enjoy still hearing Matt's podcast. If you haven't checked that one out, please do so. And I think Chris Halleck's going to do a great job as well, taking over the beat. And I know, with DK and Ramon on board, everything's going to be fine here. And I'll be watching. I'll be keeping an eye on the site. I hope it continues to do well. Very proud to have been a part of it, and proud that you've enjoyed my time here. If you haven't, well, sorry. Tried my best. But that's going to do it for the Dale Lolley Show here today, and, well, forever. It's been fun. It's been real, but all good things. You can listen to all of our other podcasts here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We got stuff on the Steelers, the Penguins, the Pirates, Pitt, Penn State. They got big games this weekend. Can't wait to watch that Pitt-Tennessee game. Penn State, Ohio, maybe not so much, but, enjoy those as well, and continue listening here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. This is Dale Lolley signing off.